If there's one message that I want to leave with you today, based on my experience, is that there is no question that there will be a challenge to the coming administration in the arena of infectious diseases, both chronic infectious diseases in the sense of already ongoing disease, and we have certainly a large burden of that, but also there will be a surprise outbreak. Now, the history of the last 32 years that I've been the director of NIAID will tell the next administration that there's no doubt in anyone's mind that they will be faced with the challenges that their predecessors were faced with. That it is a perpetual challenge. It is not going to go away. So the thing we're extraordinarily confident about is that we are going to see this in the next few years. Thank you.
$365 burning down the house. But before you do, make sure Anthony Fauci is in there. That's a terrible thing to say, but it feels so good. That's right. Welcome, everybody. Good evening, wherever you find yourself around the world here. Speaking of which, this is the #1 shadow ban show here, World at War. That's right. And I am your late night host, Dean Ryan. Yes, and tonight's episode is, well, you know, this is a character we haven't spoken about in quite some time, and that is Anthony Fauci, because it is the hunt for Anthony Fauci as everything is coming out. Just when you thought you were crazy all those years talking about a bat that loved us from Wuhan, well, guess again, it is a time to reflect on just exactly how we're going to punish the supposed unpunishable because of the Biden pardons. Well, pardon me, I don't know if that's going to work this time around. So anyways, yes, we're going to be talking about that and a whole lot of real deal politics here tonight. And joining us for that and going forward with it is the one and only Jim Fetzer, who is on deck here tonight, and he is fired up. And I can't contain him. He is a fireball, a force to be reckoned with. And I even think an eighth wonder of the world here tonight. And I'm just making that guesstimation. So we're going to be getting into, yes, the Fauci dogmas. As, you know, you look back just about 5 years ago, 4 years ago, even 3, it did not age well. It did not age well. So we'll see if the Mass Bandit, another one, in this case, Fauci, we'll just see how far they're going to go and if they're going to go the distance with this one. Also, we have some huge, this is a kind of a long form of a report I have for everybody here tonight in the Real Deal Health section here. And we're going to talk about the miracle jab rollouts. just exactly who's behind it. When did it start? Is it just a Trump thing? Is it just a former administration with Biden thing? Is there something more? So we're going to look exactly into that because it's very confusing, and there's a lot of blame to go around. Just don't blame me. That's all I can say. Also, we have some World War III news, and there's also some worry, some doubt that Elon Musk is going bye-bye. We'll address those rumors, those whisper campaigns once again. Absolutely. And Andrew Cuomo is back in the news, and I'm so pissed I missed this just days ago. Yes, the Cuomo brother is now running again over there in New York for mayor this time. But he's in some major hot water. Yes, he is. He's in some major SH something. Yeah, yes, he is. Also, there's a new bill that's going to be criminalizing miracle jabs. You're going to want to know about, speaking of that. Also, Al Gore comes out of the glue factory. He's coming back and trying to be relevant again and using the old Nazi analogy. Yes, tested and tried and very boring. Yes, that's the best way to describe him. Also, in the international news, we do have some huge updated news about the World Economic Forum and who's going to be replacing that creepy old guy who's probably dead too, Klaus Schwab, the guy who popularized the Mankini. Yeah, we're going to see who his replacement is and see if he's going to be any different. And my guess is probably not. Probably not. And then some major turnarounds in the UK with Starmer, the full-fledged communist and jihadi in training. I'm going to tell you about that. And finally, we're going to end on a wonderful Real Deal Wildlife. We haven't done that in quite some time. Okay, before we get started, we are broadcasting live. We're broadcasting live over there at the Real Dean Ryan on Facebook. Thank you to all of you, a handful of you that can see me, as well as Dean Ryan TV on YouTube and Rumble, the frozen channel that never moves. That's how we feel about it. Okay, let's get started with some headlines from around the world and in your neck of the bloody woods, shall we? Yes, it is. Let's get into the real deal headlines. And there's a lot to get into, if you know what I'm saying. Let's start with this now. Well, yes, the White House is now admitting, this is official, admits to the Wuhan laboratory leak. Yes, as Fauci's credibility crumbles in historic scandal. And also, this is in addition to Trump rescinding the security detail for Anthony Fauci. Yes, the son of Mother Teresa, they're saying. Well, now a stunning reveal is now upon us from the United States government. The first in quite some time has now shattered the establishment's 5-year false narrative that COVID-19 84 was inevitable and a so-called natural pandemic. Yeah, organic, just came out of the blue, surprise. Well, the White House is now damning a repurposing of its pandemic website and now acknowledges what critics have warned since 2020, that the SARS-CoV-2 likely originated from the Wuhan Institute of Virology lab leak funded by the American taxpayers. They funded it. Well, this admission arrives amid cascading evidence of a well-orchestrated fraud implicating top scientists, public health officials, and U.S. intelligence agencies. It also underscores the catastrophic fallout of a system where big pharma, globalist institutions, and compliant media lapdogs alliances weaponized fear like we've never seen before outside of the silver screen. That's right, as the genetic engineering to destabilize societies, to miracle jab populations against their own will and erode civil liberties. Well, that's exactly the kind of history that we all experienced in just 5 years. Well, here's the takeaway, just to put it bluntly. The takeaway, one of them is the Trump administration's revamped COVID-19 84 web portal claims the virus escaped from the Wuhan laboratory. citing suppressed evidence about SARS-CoV-2 and the unnatural traits of the faulty natural origin narrative. Another takeaway is that Dr. Anthony Fauci, and I say that loosely, and allies colluded to bury lab leak proof per Freedom of Information Act. Yeah, the NIH, all those people, disclosures while promoting debunked wet market theories like 6 feet, wear a mask, when you're at the restaurant, but you can take it off when you eat. But if you go to the laboratory, you have to put your mask back on. Who remembers how annoying that was and how stupid everybody was and just how smarter we got? And finally, a final takeaway from this whole debacle is the congressional reports, FBI analysis, and whistleblower testimonies reveal a global bioweapon cover-up, tying Fauci-funded research to the Wuhan labs and the rise of the dreaded mRNA depopulation miracle jabs. So there it is, and then you throw in the whole media psyop and you collude it with all of these egghead mad scientists. Then we have that's a new world order, all packaged, prepackaged, ready to go. So what we're predicting here at World at War is the new Nuremberg trials are all set to go. They're getting ready for it. The stage is set. And you're going to find out why, because of what Minnesota is doing incongruent to this whole thing. Moving on here. Now check this out here. As now we go, here's another just a whopper of a story, as the FDA now is to phase out the dye used in Flamin' Hot Cheetos, Skittles, and other snacks. Well, finally, because this is where the cancer is coming from. This is where the American Cancer Society can't figure out, why does everyone have cancer? Well, let's forget it. Let's just keep racing for a cure one of these days, like chemo. Yeah, exactly. Well, this is a big sign, a big turn of events now, as Bobby Kennedy is really setting the bar pretty high. Well, yes, now the FDA is phasing all this out. The Food and Drug Administration is phasing out the use of artificial dyes by the end of next year. The policy change will hit food and drink companies like Pepsi, Coca-Cola, General Mills, and yes, Kellogg's. Now, the so-called Make America Healthy Again platform argues a corrupt alliance of drug and food companies and the federal health agencies that regulate them are making Americans less healthy and really spurring the surge of cancer throughout the most cancerous country in the world. That's America. So, yeah, if you like Flamin' Hot Cheetos, well, I don't know what to tell you. If you like Mountain Dew and Baja Blast and, dare I say, Skittles, I mean, yeah, you're not going to have a good day, but it's for the best. Moving on now. Well, this brings us to Kristi Noem, who, this is a weird story. And if you think about what the potential implications of the story, it'll make your head spin. And more importantly, I'll show you in a minute, but yeah, her purse was stolen just yesterday. I don't know if you heard about this. I was going to use it last night, but yeah, her purse was stolen during dinner in DC, including $3,000 cash, blank checks, and makeup. This is weird. Who just steals a purse like she didn't know it was there? Well, the cabinet secretary receives around-the-clock Secret Service protection. Yes, Kristi does. The Homeland Security Secretary, Kristi Noem, was robbed on Easter Sunday, if you can believe it. Kind of sacrilegious, even if you're not. Well, despite her Secret Service protection and a stunning breach of security. Stunning. Well, Kristi had a bag taken from her as she was out dining at a restaurant in Washington, D.C. She's now been dubbed the Ice Barbie. And, that's just what they call her. For her many law enforcement-related outfits. Now, the secretary's bag, which included her makeup, as we previously stated, it was stolen according to two sources familiar with the stolen matter. One law enforcement source disclosed that there were plenty of valuables in the bag. An unidentified thief was able to take off with Noem's driver's license, medication, house keys, passport, and even her Department of Homeland Security's badge. And yes, the makeup bag, and blank checks and roughly $3,000 in cash. How she was able to get the cash out of their banks when everyone else can't, well, that beats me. Nobody knows what is going on here. Well, after reviewing the restaurant security footage, the Secret Service determined that Noam's bag was snatched by well, this is new, a white man in a medical mask who then exited the restaurant. In fact, we have actual footage of it right here, as you can plainly see. Let me continue. Well, yes, so they caught this guy, or did they? They're saying her entire family was in town, including her children. And I guess she has grandchildren. I don't believe that. It's unclear at what the motive was or what's going to come about of it. But it just shows you how flimsy the Secret Service still is and seems to be in these security breaches. I don't know. See, another thing I was thinking about too, was there something in there that she was hoping would go viral and escape and get out? I mean, this seems a bit concocted for my taste, if you know what I'm saying. But poor Christy. And God, I wish I could be there for her. She needs a shoulder to cry on. Just a precious thing. Anyways, moving on here. Okay, so this is another one here. Now, housing relief is in the topics now. As now housing relief in sight as foreign buyers retreat, deportations rise, and Airbnb pulls back. Yeah, this is huge. You know, you go up and down California, and I would even say as far as Washington as well. And you know who's buying it? The Chinese are. And I'm not talking American Chinese either. I'm talking all the way from the Far East, Mao Zedong relatives, you know. Well, the housing relief, yes, is now having a turn of events. Now, the political tensions, Trump's tariffs, a weak Canadian dollar, and Canada's own foreign buyer ban led to a mass exodus of Canadian investors in the United States, who previously accounted for 13% of foreign home purchases. I did not know that. Well, this reduced competition in the United States housing market is really a sign of the times. Under the Trump deportations, they're saying it's surged 100,000 plus since January, and illegal crossings dropped 94%, reducing housing demand from migrants. And if you recall, remember migrants get a free house? I mean, England knows what we're talking about. They do it all the time. Well, realtors predict rents could fall by 15% by the end of the year. Doesn't that sound sweet to you? Though critics warn of the economic instability from mass deportations, yes, they do. Well, the high cost of regulatory pressures are pushing owners to convert or sell 2.4 million short-term rentals, with about 500,000 expected to exit the market by next year, potentially easing the housing shortage. Now, in closing, Trump's hardline immigration stance contrasts sharply with Biden's, and you know that's not hard to do, which saw the cartel profits soar from smuggling. Meanwhile, Canada's housing crises and political uncertainty accelerated its residents' U.S. property sales. So it wasn't just Trump's fault. You know, there's a lot of things going on in Canada. There's a lot of drama there. So, but in the event the housing crash truly actually happens like it did in 2008, the place you're going to want to look at is Las Vegas. That's usually the sign of major failure. Moving on here as now we continue. We're going to continue now is the dramatic surge of pharmaceuticals, and is really going through the roof this time. That's right. Dramatic surge in pharmaceutical drug use reveals a nation suffering and health crises, mental and physical as well. That's right. Let me tell you what this all means, because according to a recent survey, as this comes from Natural News, 61% of adults now are all on pharmaceutical drugs. Yeah. So this is the irony. The same generation that told us what our brains were like on drugs and cracked an egg in a frying pan and demonized pot smokers. Well, all those people who are much older now, they're the biggest drug addicts in the country. It's just legalized and preferred. See the irony? Well, yes, that's just exactly it. They're saying the problem isn't just over medication. It's the systematic brainwashing of patients, explains health activist Dr. Jane Carter, who's been a vocal critic of the pharmaceutical trends for quite some time. Well, this is what she's saying, is the vocal critic that she is. She's now saying that, yes, the 61% of U.S. adults are all on prescription drugs. Over $5 trillion annually is spent on healthcare, yet the United States life expectancy lags behind 30 nations. That's right. I mean, how many times have you been on social media and, so-and-so died, or this celebrity died, or this musician died, or this popular person? It is just so common now. It's so common that when you read about these deaths, they don't tell you what people die from anymore. They don't tell you what they did. They just tell you, oh, he was such a sweet soul and he had his whole life ahead of him. The eulogies at so-and-so time. Yet you don't hear the cause anymore. There's a reason. Well, elderly Americans now, they're saying, are the hardest hit now, with 89% taking prescription medication, while millions face drug shortages due to reliance on imports from China and India. Goes to show a lot of our off-the-counter drugs, if not more, are all from those two superpower countries there. Now, 78% of adults avoid hospitals due to exorbitant cost, yet medical debt plagues 100 million Americans. Yeah, it puts a whole new definition and twist to truly who is and what is homeless. Now, removing big pharma ads on television is a start, but it doesn't address the bigger issue with big pharma and its stranglehold on Americans' doctors' medical education, which has more powerful influence over patients and prescription practices than ever before. Yes, we're the only country that has TV adverts of these big pharma drugs. Nobody else has it, just us. That should tell you. That should tell you. And that's going to sum up our real deal headlines. And it's really just starting now. Now, here is Doge. Let's get to Doge here. Yes, Elon has taken a big hit personally and professionally with his involvement now in politics. But this one hurts. It's got to hurt. Yes, Tesla profits have now dropped 71% amid the anti-Musk backlash. Wow, that's right in the kisser right there, the backlash. Let me tell you what it's all about here now. Is Tesla has been usually the bastion of the liberal, and not even so much conservative, but the people that care about the environment have always bought Teslas. You can't go in LA and not run into a Tesla. Well, that's now changed. Well, Tesla's profits, yes, fell 71% over the first 3 months of this year. A company earnings release on just this today actually has now showed the company's performance fell short of the analysts' expectations. Now, the decline was announced after a sales slump in stock woes at the electric car maker, and it comes amid the worldwide protests spurred by the CIA against CEO Elon Musk over his role in President Donald Trump's administration, which is rather limited. Well, the total revenue now, they're saying, has now decreased by 9% from 1 year earlier to only just a sad, lonely $19.3 billion. While the revenue derived from car sales plunged to 20% over the first 3 months, the earnings still show a downfall. So what does this mean? Well, Elon's now saying he then called Doge at one time a very necessary thing to do. Quote, working for the government to get the financial house in order is mostly done. Well, he's now saying, quote, I think starting probably next month in May, my time allocation to those will drop significantly. Yeah, he's retreating. I mean, 71%. Can you imagine? He also added that he expected to keep working for the government 1 or 2 days a week for the remainder of Trump's presidency, quote, making sure that the waste and fraud that we stopped does not come back roaring ever again. But he added he would start shifting more time and attention back to Tesla. Yeah, that sounds like a very plausible route that he's taken to get out, if you ask me. That's how we see it. And now let's get to some World War III news, because it's world at war. Yes, World War III. And this one feels great. This one feels great to share with all of you now, as Zelensky is not in a good place. He's not in a good place, and he's running out of your money. That's right. And they're even running out of soldiers. What am I talking about? Well, get this now. Zelensky has now called for a 30-day ceasefire as the United States fatigue grows over Ukraine's war cost. Yeah, it's a lot of money. What can we say? Yes, Zelensky has now challenged Russia to halt strikes on civilians for at least 30 days. We're not sure if that's 30 days altogether or 30 business days. Who knows with Zelensky, as he's calling it a test of Moscow's commitment to peace. Yeah, the same commitment to peace that he's rejected how many times? Don't you just hate this guy? Don't you wish you could just treat him like a piñata, like that one drag queen? Anyways, the Western support for Ukraine shows signs of fatigue as the United States signals a reluctance over prolonged aid. You think? Well, conflicting reports emerge from the front line as some areas see reduced attacks while others remain violent. Now, Trump is now with other U.S. officials who are pushing for negotiations amid growing financial and political pressures to end this frivolous conflict. In closing, the economic strain and the war fatigue may force compromises despite deep divides between Ukraine and Russia's demands. Either way you slice it, yes, the drag queen of Ukraine, yeah, he's not going to be on this earth much longer, if you ask me, I tell you. Okay, well, here's something. We're going to switch to Real Deal Politics as Jim Fetzer is on deck. But I got to bring this to attention, and let's just get to politics right now, and we'll ask him about Pete Hegseth. There's a lot of drama. Real Deal Politics. Let's talk about it. Let's talk about it now. There's now some major changes going on in the Trump White House. Yes, there is. We just shared with you last night that the rumors that are turning into reality, some might say, of Pete Hegseth resigning, well, it's coming true. Or is it? Well, let me tell you about this first, and we're going to ask Jim all about that. Well, now the Trump administration has now launched what is now being coined as the biggest shakeup in the State Department we've ever seen in our history, or at least decades. Oh, yeah. Yes, that's absolutely correct. According to the documents that have now been released, the State Department will now be eliminating 132 of its offices, along with 700 positions, all within. Now, these offices are wings of the agency over there in Washington, D.C., and the focus on a variety of foreign policy issues, and are viewed by the Trump administration as no longer necessary. That's right. The 700 positions are for civil services, foreign service employees, rather than political appointees. Now, the elimination of the roles, in addition to the State Department's, asks for undersecretaries to reduce their personnel by 15%. Well, the State Department is also now transferring 137 offices to other parts of the agency to consolidate all these programs they say we need. Well, they're saying this is coming from Little Marco Rubio. Bathhouse Marco says, quote, "The approach will empower the department from the ground up, from the bureaus to the embassies." Just very poignant, isn't it? Now, the Trump administration's move will almost certainly face staunch criticism from the traitorous Democrats over there in Congress, who've expressed concerns about the national security and American diplomacy amidst reports of Trump's potential shrinking of the agency. Now, in closing, what about the U.S. aid? Whatever came about with that, you might ask? Well, that's a good question, as now a second senior State Department official has now told media that the foreign assistance functions formerly ran by U.S. aid will now be taken over and ran by the Regional State Department Bureau, or folded into other existing offices. Now, the disaster that's known as USAID will be moved to a bureau population, but otherwise will be phased out starting. Actually, not even starting. It will be completely gone by the 1st of July of this year. Yes, so talk about a whole turn of events. Once again, we see the fall. Now, moving on, yes, as promised, Cuomo is back. He's running for mayor of New York. Yes, he is. Yes, he is. Just when you thought he would be hiding from all those senior citizens he killed, well, I guess not. So he's made a run and made an announcement. He's running for mayor. He's going to be challenging Mayor Boondoggle. And as he was doing this, the House of Oversight Committee has now referred Andrew Cuomo to DOJ for criminal prosecution. This is a big one. Yes, it is. James Comer over there at the Oversight Committee is referring Andrew Cuomo to the Department of Justice for criminal prosecution for allegedly lying to Congress. This is the second time that Comer has made this referral. It was initially sent to the DOJ during the final months of the Biden administration, if you recall. But this time it comes as Cuomo is campaigning to be New York City's next mayor, sadly. Referral is based on findings from the Select Subcommittee on the Coronapalooza pandemic, which has accused Cuomo of making false statements to Congress when he was called to testify of his handling of New York's nursing homes during the early stages of the pandemic. And who can forget that? That was the saddest thing ever. And they did the same thing throughout the Commonwealth, too. It was just all lock and step. Now, here's a closing statement from Mr. Comer. He said, quote, Andrew Cuomo is the man with a history of corruption, deceit, now caught red-handed, lying to Congress during the Select Committee's investigation into COVID-1984's nursing home tragedies over there in New York. Isn't that something? Yeah, he should have thought twice by getting back into the arena, shouldn't he? Well, here's another one here. Speaking of which, another sign of the times is now Minnesota Republicans have now introduced a miracle jab criminalization bill drafted by Florida hypnotist. Yeah, they had to throw that in there, didn't they? Yeah, this is a huge deal now because, and I'll tell you why in our Real Deal Health section of what Biden did to guarantee protection until 2029. Very weird. Well, a group of 8 Republicans over there in Minnesota have now introduced legislation that would designate certain miracle jabs and medical treatments as, quote, weapons of mass destruction. Wow. And make possessing and administering them a crime punishable by up to 20 years in prison. Now, the legislation specifically targets the mRNA treatments, which include several miracle jab performances. Now, these miracle jabs have now, they say, saved millions of lives, which is quite the opposite. They've killed, and are considered one of the most important medical public health achievements in the 21st century. Yeah, this is what they have to put in the article, though. Now, the bill's language appears to be drafted by a Florida hypnotist and so-called conspiracy theorist who believes mRNA treatments are nanoparticle injections that amount to a, quote, biological and technological weapons of mass destruction. And I don't see any fault with what he described there. I think he's right on the money. So kudos to the hypnotist. Okay, let's get into it now. So this has a lot to do now with Pete Megaseth. And the weird story, just like Kristi Noem's story about the stolen purse, it just doesn't make sense to me. And neither does the Signal chat leak and everything. And now the drama has now festered into something where the media is now saying our defense secretary of just 2 months now, well, he's going to be going the way of the buffalo over there in D.C. In fact, he's now responding to this as I guess Trump is in his corner. We'll ask Jim after this. A little video. Check this out.
You know, what a big surprise that a few leakers get fired and suddenly a bunch of hit pieces come out from the same media that peddled the Russia hoax that won't give back their Pulitzers. They got Pulitzers for a bunch of lies. Pulitzers for a bunch of lies and on hoaxes time and time and time again. And as they peddle those lies, no one ever calls them on it. See, this is what the media does. They take anonymous sources from disgruntled former employees, and then they try to slash and burn people and ruin their reputations. Not going to work with me, because we're changing the Defense Department, putting the Pentagon back in the hands of warfighters, and anonymous smears from disgruntled former employees on old news doesn't matter. So I'm happy to be here at the Easter egg roll with my dad and my kids, because this is what we're doing it for. These kids right here. This is why we're fighting the fake news media. This is why we're fighting slash and burn Democrats. This is why we're fighting hoaxsters. Hoaxsters. This group, no, this group right here, full of hoaxsters that peddle anonymous sources from leakers with access to grind, and then you put it all together as if it's some news story. And when we know it, we know exactly what it is. So I'm really proud of what we're doing for the president, fighting hard across the board, and I'm going to go roll some Easter eggs with my kids.
Yeah, he's a real hotshot, isn't he? He's like the jock at high school, just a real winner. Anyways, to talk about this and a whole lot more is our very own political analyst here at Real Deal Media, the one and only Jim Fenster. Jim, welcome to World at War. Let's get into it.
I think that Kristi Noem may have just been a legitimate, ordinary person, actually. I mean, turns out she had $3,000 in there. But it's a nice point that you got the Secretary of Homeland Security who doesn't have enough security for herself to avoid a purse snatching. I mean, that is bizarre. Now, it is. I'm not sure we have a clear idea of exactly what's going on firing these aides, whether they were supposed to be the source of leaks or whether they simply disagree with the whole idea of moving to attack Iran, which is going to lead to a catastrophic consequences. Iran is prepared. Iran can wipe out Israel, I have no doubt. Iran would prefer not to. But look at it this way. The whole situation is predicated on the a nuclear weapons program that does not exist, that Iran denies exists, and that America affirms does not exist. We had Tulsi come on as Director of National Intelligence and explain there's a consensus in the intelligence community, including CIA, that Iran does not have nuclear weapons and is not attempting to develop them. We know, of course, it's a fantasy spun by Bibi Netanyahu over around 20 years now that Iran is just weeks from. And yet the weeks come and the weeks go, and it's still about weeks from. I mean, it's absurd. It's an elementary fallacy of ambiguity. Because if you specify the date, like, 15 June 2024, which came and went, well, that was the date he was talking about 2 weeks before. That would have been. He just repeats it again. It's total propaganda. He wants the United States to do the dirty work for Israel. That was really the whole point of 9/11.
But Jim, I want to get into the leaker here in a second. But another anomaly to this whole thing is, and we covered this the other night, is you have this newly appointed defense secretary. I mean, what are we talking, like 2-3 months now? Not very long. Former Fox News host, and he's all up and down these so-called private chats, which, when Hillary was doing it, it was a problem. It wasn't on these state-sponsored phones, and here he's doing it, and he's including all these extra people to just join in. This is another. It feels very concocted and contrived to me. It just doesn't make sense at all. Why? How could you be so careless? But to your point about the leaker, I believe his name is Carl. It escapes me. People out there would know, but he just he went on the Tucker Carlson show and tried to set the record straight. And I think you would really appreciate this. In fact, here it is. This is the leaker who was escorted out of the Pentagon and given the boot by Pete Megaseth there. Check this out.
Dan Caldwell is a Marine Corps veteran who wound up until 3 days ago advising the Secretary of Defense, Pete Hegseth, on military policy. He was one of the strongest voices in the U.S. government and the Trump administration against the war with Iran. And his rationale was simple. It's not in America's interest, and many Americans will die, and billions will be spent on a war we don't need to fight. And as someone who fought in Iraq, he was able to take that case to the principals with some force. Then, 3 days ago, he was fired from the Pentagon. But not for his views on Iran. No, Dan Caldwell was fired because, reporters are told off the record, he had leaked classified documents to the media. But what were these classified documents exactly? Well, no one at the Pentagon could know the answer to that because Dan Caldwell's phone was never examined, nor was he given a polygraph. So actually, beneath the headlines was nothing other than a false accusation. Was Dan Caldwell fired because he opposed the push to war with Iran? You decide. Here's Dan Caldwell. So there is an enormous amount of pressure on this administration to participate in military action against Iran. And the president's position has been, I think, really clear for a long time, which is we don't want Iran to get nuclear weapons. That's bad for everybody.
Yes.
He sincerely believes that. He's against proliferation. He's very concerned about nuclear weapons in general, I think. But we would strongly prefer a diplomatic solution. And he's being attacked up and down, including by a lot of people in the administration and private, and really who are trying to steer him toward military action. So leaving aside all the internecine fights going on, just as a real life matter, what would happen if the U.S. participated in a military strike on Iran's nuclear sites?
So I strongly believe that for diplomacy to work, there needs to be a credible military option.
Yes.
And the president needs that. The Pentagon, where I used to work, needs to provide that. That is their role in American foreign policy, is to provide that leverage for diplomatic solutions to work. Now, that's how it's supposed to work. Does it often work that way? Unfortunately, the last 30 years have shown us that it really doesn't. But the Trump administration is trying to make it work that way, like it's supposed to. So that's
we're pursuing diplomacy with the leverage of potential military action.
Correct. That is how it's supposed to work. Now, it could be an incredibly costly war.
Jim, there's no sign of any leak whatsoever. Nobody even checked his phone. Why would they push such a false narrative like this?
Dean, I'll tell you, it baffles me. Really, truly, I don't quite understand what's going on here. I know there is a struggle within the administration, and apparently, I think Hegseth may actually be on the same side as Vance and the same side as Tulsi Gabbard in opposing an attack. Whereas, of course, you got this guy Walls, who appointed, believe it or not, a woman to the Iran-Israel desk who's a former operative for Israel. I mean, this guy Waltz clearly has to be Mossad. I mean, this is just disgusting. I gave a speech back in 2008 that no dual citizen should ever be put in a policy making or decision deriving position in the government, because you cannot know their loyalty to the other state doesn't outweigh their loyalty to the United States. But Trump has violated everyone in his cabinet virtually is a Zionist, and 60% are Jews.
Jim, is there anyone who's not the Mossad anymore? I'm starting to think that we might be, and we just don't even know it. I mean, just everybody seems to be in Mossad. Yeah. Jim, I want to hold you over. We have a break coming up here, and I want to get into a lot of this confusion. Plus, we could touch upon Al Gore if we feel like it, but I really want to get into the struggle of Bobby. And, there's a lot of people that are saying, well, why are the H1N1 bird flu miracle jabs coming out? We thought there was going to be a, pro health freedom. But, Jim, I put it all together for you and the audience here tonight. And we're going to discover this timeline of this rollout in the post-COVID era, if we can say that. So stand by there, Jim. Okay, so there we have it. We're going to take this quick break here. And when we get back, we're going to get into the real deal health. You're going to want to hear about just how much money has been allocated, not recently. No. All within the Biden administration. It'll blow your mind. It will blow your mind when you find out who exactly. So watching World at War, the #1 shadow banned show in the world. Stand by. We'll be back after this quick message.
All right.
Is that good?
Is that good? You want to do another take? Are you happy with that one?
How did I sound? Okay. Am I too black? Am I too black back here? Is it too black?
Are you identifying as black?
Well, for the next hour.
Oh.
Today, she said you were in town. Sudden memories come back to me. I
Okay, we are back as the hunt for Anthony Fauci, that rubber mask goon who gave us that sad state of affairs throughout the 1980s called AIDS. I guess in the 90s too, now that I think about it. Yes, he did. Welcome back, everybody. I'm still Dean Ryan, who's cruising with you to midnight and beyond, and I certainly love when we're cruising together, don't you? Tonight's show is brought to you by you, Real Deal Media members, the Night Owls, the Visionaires with Debonair, the Iconics, not Harmonics. Yes, them, the play from the Himalayas over there. All you got to do is go to realdealmedia.tv/membership and join tonight, join the Night Owls. In fact, members, we will have probably backstage tonight, I think, at some point, but also we have an exclusive interview you're going to hear about this coming Thursday for our members only in a very special project right after that. Okay, also get your Ivermectin. Yes, get your Ivermectin. Go to www.twc.health/Dean Ryan and make sure to use promo code Dean Ryan. And then if you get a chance, ask for a guy named Angelo. Don't ask questions, just do it. Yes. Thank you in advance. And finally, thank you to everybody who's given, who might give, who on the fence. Go to givesendgo.com/realdealgo as Real Deal Media is fighting to stay alive in the face of censorship and shadow banning like we've never experienced before. That is a fact, Jack. Okay. Let's get into it now as we're going to bring Jim back. And Jim, I'm going to bring you here. You know, I think it was you who mentioned to me that the miracle jabs that are now being fast tracked for the bird flu kind of goes against the philosophy of Bobby. Although I've said that it gives the opportunity for Bobby to to showcase these emergency use only things and test them and then show the people, just like he's doing with autism. Right. Do you think that's the mechanism just before we get into Real Deal Health here?
Well, let me say right off the bat, all vaccines seem to be harmful to children. If you look at the Amish, for example, they don't have problems with autism. Their kids are healthier and smarter than American kids because they're not given vaccines. There's a perfect correlation between vaccination and autism. The more vaccinations, the more autism. The less vaccination, the less autism. There isn't really any room for doubt about it. What has been shocking is that Bobby appears to be coerced. I suspect he's blackmailed into endorsing standard routines for vaccinations, and they're up to 60 or 80 little kids in a very short period of time. And they're children, Dean, now have been given multiple vaccinations and died on the spot. So, this is really bad. We thought Bobby was going to stand up for us. It doesn't appear to be happening.
Well, Jim, we might learn something here in this next segment about this sentiment here. Stand by as I tell you all about it here. Well, you heard what Jim just said there, and we certainly express the same kind of sentiment like he has. Well, now let's really get into the timeline of this whole debacle from the Biden administration to present day, as now we get into Real Deal Health, get to the bottom of this crisis.
Paging Dr. Ryan.
Well, that's just right. How did this all start? Who's behind it? That's a good question. And what's wrong with RFK if that's the case? Well, he might be doing something on the side. Well, here it is. RFK has now just paused the Biden-era COVID-19 84 miracle jabs and the contract worth hundreds of millions. See, there's a lot of dirty pockets here that go beyond just the DC officials in the White House, that's for sure. Let me tell you a bit more about it now, as this is quite timely. Well, the Health and Human Services Secretary, Robert F. Kennedy Jr., has now halted all of the Biden-era contracts for a new COVID-19 84 miracle jab. So they're planning to just keep us going and keep us on the big pharma dole here, if you know what I'm saying. Now he's issuing a 90-day stop work order on multi-million-dollar deals from the biotech firm VaxArt Incorporated. And a lot of these biotechs are all in California. That's what's propping up California, is Silicon Valley in the biotech industry. You're going to see a whole host of those companies getting all propped up, and that's why they're bringing all the Eastern Indians here. And a lot of it is in San Diego. I was surprised to learn. Well, now the Bobby has now paused the contract between Biden administration and VaxArt Incorporated, a biotech company developing a new oral COVID-19 84 miracle jab. What's next? A COVID-19 84 suppository? I mean, what do these people, what do they have planned for us? Well, the pause delays now clinical trials involving 10,000 participants. And who the hell would want to volunteer for that? Is it really worth that $50 bill, which were set to begin yesterday, they're now saying? Well, this is a quote here from Kennedy. He's saying, quote, while it is crucial that the Department of Health and Human Services support the pandemic preparedness, for years of the Biden administration's failed oversight have made it necessary to review agreements for miracle jab production, including, yes, VaxArt. Now, the contract details could be murky from afar, but when you look into it, well, the proof is in the pudding, and the pudding is in the miracle jab now. As part of the Biden administration's $4.7 billion initiative was structured through the Biomedical Advanced Research and Development Authority, a division of the Administration for Strategic Preparedness and Response under the HHS. So there's a lot of people who are benefiting from this that have the cloak of being in one of these big departments and have plausible deniability. All their grubby hands. We got to find who these people are. Now, BARDA allocated $460 million of the VaxArt's miracle jab development. $240 million had already been authorized for initial studies. You know, all the studies that just say how great these things are. You know, because you don't get paid in these studies if you say otherwise. A recent contract modification would have allowed VaxArt to invoice BARDA for the remaining $230 million to begin large-scale trials. Well, it just never seems to amaze me. So this is a huge shift for America and the Trump administration in tangent. Continuing now. Well, where did this all start from? And this is what I've been finding here. Georgia halts poultry sales as HHS allocates $590 million for flu miracle jabs. This is where things come into question here. You may have heard the story we shared with you earlier in the week about the fast-tracking emergency usage once again. But who is it coming from? That's what I was trying to find out. Well, it's coming from Georgia. The state of Georgia this time has now halted all sales, but they've now allocated money to give and to receive. Georgia officials now on Friday, and this is, by the way, from January 18th, before this new administration even came into place. I'm revisiting some of these things, as the United States Health Department back then awarded $590 million to Moderna to accelerate the development of miracle jabs to protect people from the flu strains in cows and birds. It's also worth noting that the state and federal officials confirmed a case of bird flu in commercial poultry. Yeah, so this was the beginning of how we got in the egg shortage. This is the beginning of how we got the fast tracking of these miracle jabs. So, and this is from January, what I'm sharing with you. They're saying for the first time since the ongoing nationwide outbreak began in 2022, it's been confirmed that the poultry, so yeah, they did a culling of millions of chickens and turkeys, you name it. They're saying at this time in January that this is a serious threat to Georgia's #1 industry and the livelihoods of thousands of Georgians who make a living in the poultry industry. So you have to imagine also, which you don't have to imagine far and hard, that the grubby fingers isn't just in the federal departments of the HHS who were recipients of these hundreds of millions of dollars. It was in state government as well, before the Trump administration was even formed. so to speak. Now, next, what I also found out is I had to revamp it all. Well, look at this. Here's the actual registry. Revocation of emergency use of biological product during the COVID-19 84 pandemic availability. And if you look at the time frame, the date on that, it is 2024, around that same time. So they were planning the ZZAX, the whole nine, before Trump even got into office, and somewhat are continuing. This is right under our nose. Next, this is where things get good. As Biden is leaving now, he now does a protection clause where he's now allocating. Let me rewind this a bit here. Let me go back here. Let me tell you about this. Biden extends the COVID miracle jab liability shield through 2029. So the next 4 years. Isn't that interesting? He's doing it while Trump's in office. He extends it 4 years, like they have hopes of getting back in. Well, that's just it. And by the way, what I'm sharing with you, this is from December. So at this time, he was given the pardons, as you recall. So the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services extended the shield through 2029, liability protections for those producing and administering the COVID-19 84 miracle jabs in a move to guard against future potential emergencies. Wink, wink. The HHS first declared the public health emergency in 2020. We all know that. Now, this announcement that I'm sharing with you from December came at a time as people were working in the industry, working in the miracle jab injury space, have called for the miracle jabs of the COVID-19 to be covered under the HHS Miracle Jab Injury Compensation Program, known as the VICP. The program pays people injured by standard childhood miracle jabs and shields drug makers from litigation. That is so unfair. What does Elizabeth Warren think about that? And as of November of last year, 2024, over 13,000 claims for measures for treating COVID-19 have been filed, 10,000 which were marked and waiting review, and over 10,500 countermeasure claims allege injury or death. The miracle jab. So all this stuff was coming out in December, and the people who controlled Biden said, we got to do something about this. These are our investments, and also these were the protocols they were going to use to stop the Trump administration from either getting in or having a clear-cut administration without any kind of hurdles to stop. So there's that one. Yeah, it's just crazy. Now, finally here, and I'll bring Jim back in here in a second. As I'm saying this, just days ago, in the past couple of days now, a NIH senior investigator has now resigned over censorship of research findings. See, this is where things get confusing again. Yes, the National Institute of Health, a National Institutes of Health senior investigator, said he was optimistic about recent leadership changes, but now he has resigned due to alleged censorship. His name is Kevin Hall, and he announced his early retirement from his so-called dream job. He said, quote, "My life's work has been to scientifically study how our food environment affects what we eat and how what we eat affects our psychological differences and attributes." He said, he continued by saying, "I hope to expand our research program with ambitious plans to more rapidly efficient determination of what's killing us and making us chronically sick. But sadly, I can't do it anymore. He's being shadow banned at his own place of employment." He said, quote, "I experienced censorship in the reporting of our research because of agency concerns that it did not appear to fully support the preconceived narratives of my agency's leadership about ultra-processed food addiction. When I saw Make America Healthy Again movement gaining bipartisan support last year, it was music to my ears. Not so much anymore." And he resigned. And that is that one. Okay, I'm going to bring you back to the stage here, Jim. Jim, you heard everything, the timeline I just laid out for you. What I'm gathering from this whole miracle jab rollout, this is almost a continuation of the last administration, and the entire HHS seems very crooked and has yet to be gutted out. I think it's going to take time.
Oh, I think you're 100% correct, Dean. And the fact is that there's reason to suspect they're putting the mRNA in all of the vaccines now. They're not announcing it. We've heard more devious plans to put them in lettuce, for example, to inject steer cattle with it so that we're going to consume it and be affected regardless. Believe me, the studies are conclusive that it brings about massive blood clots, weird stuff, the likes of which that morticians have never seen before. But the evidence out of the UK is even more direct and compelling than in the US because they are more honest and open in their reporting.
Yes, they were. And let us not forget this story that got swept under the rug. We covered it 2 years ago, and it's still daunting. Yeah, who recalls this one? The USDA scattering rabies miracle jabs for wildlife in 13 states, including Virginia, Alabama, Tennessee. That's for the preppers who go hunting. They want to make sure that when you have possum pie or squirrel, that they're truly protected from the deadly COVID-19 84. So they don't want anybody. And I stand corrected. That's from 2022. Yes, I stand corrected, not 2023. So, Jim, you're absolutely correct. Bobby's got his work on his hands. But, there's something to be said, though. The supposed leaker, he didn't leak anything, but he was let go because he had a difference of opinion, which is really common sense. Well, the same seems to be the case here with the NIH senior investigator who was very chirpy in the beginning of this whole project, but has now resigned from his, quote, dream job. Jim, there's a lot of mixed reviews going on here, but it's really hard to tell comparing it to just how crooked and corrupt the government is in these departments. So do you think they're going to just scrap the entire HHS and just form a new one at this point?
I'd be rather surprised, but it's unfortunate that they seem to have a number of appointments there that are contrary to medical practice, don't believe in the Hippocratic Oath. They're all in on the agenda of depopulation. And of course, the foremost mechanism for achieving that outcome is the mRNA vaccine. So I think we're going to see more, even if it's disguised, Dean, as something new. I think this bird flu thing is a complete sham, and it's going to be used once again to do another cycle of depopulation by means of vaccination.
Yeah, you're absolutely correct. And, they don't really hide it. As you saw in the cold opening, Fauci predicted this, just organically. And Bill Gates, how many times have we seen that? We're going to take a few questions and comments, concerns that people have regarding this, because everybody at this point, and if you recall, Jim and I, 5 years ago, we said in 2020 that at some point in the next couple of years, if not sooner, everybody's going to know somebody who's been affected negatively or worse, death from these miracle jabs. And here we are 5 years in the future. Exactly that happened. And it all started from this guy right here.
In terms of reaching the goal, the WHO's goal of vaccinating 70% of the global population by July of 2022. Show of hands on this stage. Do we think it's going to happen? Do you think it's going to happen?
What?
To get to vaccination of 70% of the population of the world?
No, it's too late.
Too late.
I mean, there's a lot of diseases out there. That demand does not exist for that. I mean, countries should be able to set priorities.
Yeah.
There's one of the great monsters of our time, along with George Soros, Bibi Netanyahu, Fauci. There you have Bill Gates, who may be the origin of so much of this. he would go around the world and say, what's the biggest threat to mankind? It's not nuclear war, it's a pandemic, planning the idea long in advance. And then we have a completely phony contrived pandemic where they take, millions of cases of the flu and simply reclassify them as COVID. So there's a public impression there's something terribly wrong. And then they tell you got to do it. It's your social responsibility so you don't contaminate anyone else. But the flu was never tested for transmissibility, had no effect on transmissibility, didn't make any difference if you had it or didn't have it, whether you would affect giving it to some. The whole thing was a sham from beginning to ending, top to bottom, A to Z.
It is, and I don't think it's over yet. And clearly, they weren't going to let it be over, the last administration. And the worst part about it, Jim, is the fact that there's been no justice. I mean, we see a little bit with Cuomo, who's now, being directed to go, to the principal's office. I doubt anything will happen. But speaking of the WEF, I want to share some of this too. There's now a new announcement, Jim. You probably covered this. Klaus Schwab, who has resigned, although we said he was gone long ago.
In more than a year before he steps down, Dean. So it's a phony announcement, meaning it hasn't got any practical significance for a year.
That's right. It's a going away tour. Well, now his replacement is going to be former Nestle CEO Peter Baerback, who has been named the interim chairman, replacing Klaus Schwab at the helm of the World Economic Forum over there. And Mr. Baerback is known for his stance that water is not a human right, but a commodity. He has long pushed for strict control over personal water usage. He's an environmentalist, Jim, extreme of the extreme kind. Even arguing that pools and car washes shouldn't be a matter of personal choice. No, he envisions a future of where an authoritative global body determines how much water individuals consume. Jim, I don't see anything wrong with that because I can't manage my own water intake. Maybe he can help me. That's not a bad idea.
Obviously, the necessities of life, like water and air, cannot be something that's marketed, lest people simply die. I mean, it's grotesque. This is just monstrous, Dean, and everyone, I think, can see the insanity of it all. If you have a modicum of human decency, which appears what's missing from Klaus Schwab and his successor.
Yeah, exactly. Here's another one. Here we have Seth Black who's saying COVID-19 has never been under a scope. Seth, it's just too massive, It's too massive because it didn't just stop with 2020.
Yeah, the alleged virus has never been isolated. There's a lot of skepticism about the existence of viruses in general. And I got to say, I think the evidence tends to favor that position. But most certainly, this whole COVID thing appears to be a phantom that's being used to generate panic in the public for purpose of manipulation.
A big money grab. Okay, we have on Rumble, we have, here we have another one. We have Mr. Hammer Time saying probably going back through the Devil's Gate to Fauci Nacho house over the ice wall. Wow, that was some gymnastics there. We have Tika Boom over there on Rumble says the VA hospital talked my dad into getting the new mRNA measles shot about a week or so ago. I'm so sorry to hear that, Tika. I wish he was watching this show so he would have had a little bit of in the know. We have Nurse Jane who says, don't forget about all the bureaucrats who own stock in Big Pharma. They push these horrible things just to boost their portfolios, like remdesivir, which I don't know how true it is, but I heard Rand Paul's wife is a huge investor, if not Rand Paul himself, into remdesivir, which is an instant killer, Jim. I mean, everybody knows that.
Yeah. You might
I don't understand that.
The death jab, the remdesivir. respirators, of course, putting you on an incubator, that's a virtual guarantee too. I mean, it's very, very tragic what's happened here, Dean. But the idea they're going to persevere, I don't see the signs that Trump is relinquishing. You know, he took credit for warp speed, and there's those who try to find, exonerating aspects. They did mandate having shots, but shutting down the country for as long as he did was catastrophic and virtually wiped out the middle class. All kinds of independent businesses went under, and they have never come back.
We have happy Abram over there on Rumble that says remdesivir equals run death is near. Yes, it does. Tika Boom says it shuts down the kidneys. Oh, that's sad. Yes, it is. We have Angelina Wolf that says, my neighbor has a machine that pulls 5 to 8 gallons of water a day from the air. Yeah, and supposedly water can make vehicles run, but they killed the inventor of that not that long ago. We have Carolyn Shepard that says, a scam with a scam. Yeah, that's all. It's one scam after another, and it really highlighted the stupid people in our lives, didn't it? You know, what can I say? Although, Jim, I think it's quite thrilling to see what the 8 Republican senators out of Minnesota are doing, which is kind of odd to think about it, because it was a senator whistleblower, a state senator whistleblower out of Minnesota in 2020 that went public on the fact that the American Medical Association was giving $13,000 to each and every hospital for each new diagnosis of COVID. And then they were giving $39,000 for each death related to COVID.
Jensen.
Yes, Jensen, that's right.
Hero.
Yeah, that's right. And speaking of a hero, since you're here, Jim, I thought this, you probably covered this of interest in a lot of new 9/11 talk, especially over there at X lately, and a lot of new footage, unseen footage unearthed. Well, so much so that even Wisconsin Senator, well, I should say U.S. Senator, Mr. Ron Johnson, he says his eyes have now been opened to 9/11 and is calling for a new investigation. Jim, I got to tell you, he wasn't really on my radar as people I really cared for, but he's gained so many points with me that I'm willing to forgive all that stuff.
Absolutely. He's a great man. I think he would be a terrific potential president of the United States. I've met him. I've talked with him. I like him. He's responsive. He's responsible. He's a leader. I'm very impressed, and I like what he's doing here. And as a founder of Scholars for 9/11 Truth, I'm going to do everything I can to aid and abet him.
Yes. Okay. And here's some other things too, Jim. We'll get your take on before we adios out of here. Well, they're now saying, the chemtrails have mercury in it. We had Mike Adams test the fog as of recently, and they're discovering that there's mercury in it, which is causing a lot of memory loss. A lot of memory loss, a lot of ailments. When you think you have, early onslaught dementia, that might not be organically true. But wait, now they're discovering this, and this is very telling now. They're saying it's coming from marijuana as well. That's right. Right here, there's now heavy marijuana use may raise dementia risk within 5 years.
I don't believe
middle-aged.
Yeah. Ridiculous. Completely ridiculous.
Yeah, it is ridiculous.
Totally ridiculous. Marijuana is a superior high. It doesn't cause lung cancer, won't cause cirrhosis of the liver. And the fact that a generation prefers to smoke their high rather than drink it, I don't have any problem with that. I've long believed it ought to be legalized, standardized, taxed. Like Colorado's making a fantastic bundle off of legal marijuana.
Jim, that could be true, but I still support our local drug dealers, and I don't want to give to the dispensaries, So that's you, and we all have our preference, and I understand that. Well, here's something else too, Jim, since you're here. Look at this. EU won't decouple from China as condition for reaching trade deal with Trump. Yeah, and China's telling everybody to there's going to be retribution along with Jamie Raskin if they make deals outside of China with the United States. Do you see this trade war and the fact that the so-called Democrats, who are just a thing in the past now, are going along with the China narrative, like that Jamie Raskin rodent? Oh, what kind of world are we living in?
Jamie Raskin, Adam Schiff. There's some really sleazeballs on the Democrat side. Not that there aren't a few on the Republican, but they are prominent examples doing great damage to the country.
Yes, they are. Now, here's another turn of events. This is coming from England. Listen to this now. As Keir Starmer U-turns to say trans women are not women after all, especially after a Supreme Court ruling. He pretty much put his feminine finger in the air and found out which way the wind was blowing and decided to just go with that. Partly too, Jim, I don't know if you heard that the Prime Minister of England, the UK over there, the communist in chief, is caught on security cam footage of having sexual relations with one of those lords they have over there in 10 Downing Street. So he thought he just,
Oh, that's pretty rich, Dean.
Jim, I hate to be the one to tell you.
I hope you'll spare us enough footage.
Well, I'm giving you a glimpse. There was a wig that was used during this act, as you can imagine. And in fact, yeah, there's a still shot of it right there. But what I'm saying is, this is why I think he is turning a boot to the trans all-stars over there in the UK to get some street cred back after just terrible, like the Kardashian tape or something. So that's that one. And finally here, speaking of weird things now, they're now finding in Europe, this is coming from Natural News, a toxic cocktail study finds almost 200 pesticides in European homes. Well, they're so old, they use a lot of the old wood, but really they use a lot of the paint that comes from China, which is just fickled with lead and all kinds of poisons, just like the mask we were all wearing. They used to step on them and made no bones about it. But they're saying a widespread pesticide contamination in a recent study over there in Europe detected nearly 200 pesticides in each and every household dust across 10 countries over there in the EU, with over 40% linked to severe health risks like cancer and hormone disruption. Persistent toxic legacy, banned chemicals like DDT, we all know what those are all over Europe, which you wouldn't think that would be the case, but it makes a lot of sense because we know people are very sick from that. And finally, on a wonderful story of real deal wildlife, this one hits home as now wild chimpanzees share boozy fermented fruit in first evidence of primate social drinking. As there's Jim in his monkey suit. I don't know what he's doing with the munchkin. But yeah, we're linked to the chimpanzee. Jim, do you think we've evolved from chimpanzees or Neanderthals, or do you think that they're just monkey see, monkey do's and just trying to be us?
Nah. It's all just having a common genetic lineage. We didn't evolve from monkeys. There's some funny stories about that with the wife of Bishop Wilberforce of England when first told of Darwin's theory that man had evolved from the apes, said, well, let's hope it's not true, but if it is true, that it not become widely known.
Well, you say that, Jim, but I've seen you eat a banana with your feet before, and But in this case, they're saying wild chimpanzees over there in
By the
Papua
way,
New Guinea.
I have
Tell
a
me.
whole book on the evolution of human mind out of primate mind in comparison with mountain gorilla, especially instructive. It's entitled The Evolution of Intelligence. And if you're interested in how biology and behavior are related, this may be the book for you. Check it out. The Evolution.
Well,
intelligence.
It is an evolution, but they found these. So we're not the only social drinkers. They're finding out through these studies, and we should take notice that probably a lot of our social behaviors are probably used in the animal kingdom beyond our knowledge. And you know what that leads us to, Jim? You guessed it. Thoughts, producer of Chimpanzee. Final thoughts here, and Jim, take us home here tonight.
Well, Dean, we confront an uncertain world where, sad to say, our leadership, which we believe was going to put America first, seems to be doing something rather different and putting the nation at risk. I only hope there's a plan behind the scene that is going to bring things out okay for all of us. And we're going to continue to have these conversations week after week. But meanwhile, spend as much time with your family, your friends, the people you love and care about, because we do not know how much time we have left. Use it wisely.
Yes, indeed. And in fact, and congratulations to you. And I don't know if people know that Jim is the new Defense Secretary after Pete Hegseth, the new Defense Secretary, General J.H. Fetzer. And meant to share that earlier. Okay, we're going to get out of here. Thank you very much. You could take that down. All right, we're going to get out of here. I want to thank Jim Fetzer for being here tonight, and each and every one of you who have joined me on the journey each and every night. I'll be back here tomorrow with the Aaron Cates on Everything Canada, as the elections are just days away, and it's going to change the future of North America and particularly this country too. So for Jim Fetzer and for everyone else here at Real Deal Media, I'm Dean Ryan saying thank you for sharing your bit of your night. Until next time, always remember to stay tuned and stay awake. Plus, maybe I'll see you again, maybe tomorrow. Good night, everyone.
Keep moving around me, West town, I'd rather be high. You want me outside my real smell. Yeah, thrill. Oh, man, yeah, tomorrow. Way home. That's tomorrow. Take my time with me. Yeah, oh, man, that's tomorrow. We'll find my way. Yeah. Found my way, way home. Man, my road, found my way, way home. Found my way.